She was forced to marry a man in a coma, a billionaire everyone feared. But when he woke up, the first thing he did was swear to kill their unborn children. 4 years later, she returns with the twins he never knew existed, and one chilling promise. Stay away from that man, he's your father. But that same night, the twins hack his computer and leave a message that shakes his empire. Come and get us, if you can. The scent of antiseptic was stronger than the roses. They had wheeled a hospital bed into the middle of the Foster family's private medical suite and called it a wedding. Cameras flashed once for documentation, then fell silent. Avery Tate stood beneath the cold fluorescence, her veil trembling in the air conditioning. The white silk clung to her shoulders like a shroud. She could see her reflection in the monitor beside the bed, pulse line steady, mechanical, alive only because of machines. Her groom lay motionless beneath sterile sheets. Elliot Foster. The man the city called the untouchable big shot. The man she was being forced to marry. Her stepmother, Margot, smiled for the few family witnesses, her fingers laced around Avery's father's trembling hand. The old man's face was ashen, sweat dotting his temples. Avery knew the numbers behind his illness, the loans, the collapsing contracts, the Foster acquisition waiting to devour everything he'd built. And Margot had found a solution. A marriage. Smile, dear, Margot murmured, teeth barely moving. You're saving your father's life. Avery did not smile. She pressed her palms together to keep them from shaking. The officiant's voice droned, echoing off glass walls and polished steel. Do you, Avery Tate, take Elliot Foster, in sickness and in health? She stared at the man who couldn't hear her. Tubes curled from his mouth, a ventilator hissed in rhythm, the sound of false breathing. She thought of what love was supposed to feel like, warmth, choice, hope. What she felt now was the dull weight of a contract. I do, she said. The words left her mouth like a confession. There was a pause, an almost imperceptible shift in the room. The nurse adjusted a monitor. Margot's red lips curved with triumph. Then by the power vested in me, the officiant said softly, you are husband and wife. Avery's stomach turned. A camera clicked again, legal proof that the merger was complete. That evening the Foster mansion loomed like a monument to silence. The driver dropped her at the foot of the marble steps and left without a word. Inside, servants avoided her eyes. Her heels echoed through the endless corridors until she reached the suite that had been prepared for her, a bedroom larger than her childhood home, filled with white lilies and expensive loneliness. She sank onto the edge of the bed. The lace gloves were still on her hands. She peeled them off slowly, finger by finger. Her reflection in the window looked like a stranger, a woman painted into perfection and locked in someone else's story. From somewhere below, the staff murmured. They were already talking about her, the new Mrs. Foster, the girl who had married a man in a coma. She turned off the light. But even in darkness, the mansion glowed faintly from hidden lamps, sterile and watchful. Hours later, she stood by the window in a slip and bare feet, staring out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, people were laughing, choosing, living. She pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering, it's just 1 year. Just until the contract clears. Behind her, the clock ticked. Then a soft mechanical beep. Avery froze. The sound came from the tablet she'd brought from the hospital, Elliot's live vitals feed, open out of restless guilt. The numbers pulsed in steady rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. She exhaled. Just routine monitoring. Still, her chest felt tight. A memory surfaced, Margot's hand gripping her wrist before the ceremony. If he never wakes, you'll inherit enough to keep your father comfortable. Everyone wins. Everyone but me, Avery thought. Morning came pale and soundless. The news headlines filled the breakfast table screens. Foster group stabilizes after surprise marriage announcement. Photographs of her wedding circulated, Avery beside a comatose man, her eyes unreadable. In the guest wing, her father coughed weakly. She spent the morning with him, feeding him soup, pretending not to notice the guilt in his eyes. You've done the right thing, Avery, he murmured. It's only temporary. She nodded because lies were easier than tears. When she returned to her suite, a man in a gray suit was waiting. Broad-shouldered, severe, Mr. Hayes, Elliot Foster's chief of staff. "Mrs. Foster," he greeted. "Mr. Foster's affairs are now under your temporary guardianship. However, there are conditions. You are not to interfere with his medical directives, and you will remain on the estate until further notice." His tone was clinical, respectful but hollow. She could feel his unspoken thought, "You're only here for the paperwork." Avery signed where he pointed. When he left, she closed the door and slid down against it, papers trembling in her hands. She had become a ghost with a title. That night the rain began. The mansion's lights reflected off wet glass like veins of gold. Avery couldn't sleep. She returned to the hospital suite, her wedding chapel, to see him again. Security tried to stop her until she said, "I'm his wife." The word still felt foreign. Inside, the machines hummed softly. Elliot lay the same way he had on their wedding day, except now she noticed the faint stubble on his jaw, the way his hand rested half open on the sheet. She moved closer. "You don't even know I exist," she whispered. "But you own me." Her fingers brushed his wrist, cool under her touch. "You could wake up tomorrow and end my life with one decision." The monitors continued their rhythm. She leaned down, voice trembling. "I don't even hate you. I just want to survive this." Thunder cracked outside. The lights flickered once. And then, beep 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 beep. The heart monitor spiked, sharp and irregular. Avery jumped back, eyes wide. Nurses rushed in, shouting, "Code blue." She was pushed aside as machines beeped in frenzy. One nurse checked the ventilator, another the four. Amid the chaos, Avery's gaze locked on Elliot's hand. It had moved. Just slightly, fingers twitching as if clawing through a dream. She couldn't breathe. Through the noise she heard someone say, "It's stabilizing." His, responding. Avery backed into the corridor, heart pounding. Rain streaked the window beside her, and in the glass reflection she saw herself again, white-faced, drenched in panic, wearing the title Mrs. Foster. She turned toward the hall to run, but the intercom crackled above her. "Mrs. Foster, the patient's eyes are open." The corridor spun. For the first time in years, Elliot Foster felt pain. Not the dull echo of monitored nerves, but a sharp, living pain searing behind his eyes. The darkness that had caged him cracked open with blinding light and noise, machines shrilling, voices blurring into chaos. "Mr. Foster, can you hear me?" His chest jerked as the ventilator tube was withdrawn. Air rasped down his throat. He coughed, choking on his own breath, body convulsing with a forgotten instinct to live. The world resolved itself in flashes, white coats, monitors, the stench of alcohol wipes. And one figure frozen near the door. A woman. Pale, trembling, eyes wide with disbelief. "Elliot, you're safe," a nurse said, pressing a hand to his shoulder. But the man on the bed wasn't listening. His gaze fixed on the woman in the corner, the only face that didn't belong to the hospital staff. "Who are you?" His voice broke like gravel. Avery couldn't answer. She felt her heart hammering, her throat closing. She should have left before this moment, should have stayed hidden behind the glass. Instead she whispered, "I'm your wife." The room fell silent. The word wife sliced through the air. Elliot blinked, slow and disbelieving. "My what?" Dr. Sanders stepped forward carefully. "You've been in a coma for almost 2 years, Mr. Foster. There were legal arrangements made during your recovery. You were married while—" Elliot's voice exploded, "While I was unconscious." Machines shrieked as his pulse spiked. He ripped the sensors from his chest, sending staff scrambling. "Who authorized this? Who dared?" "Mr. Foster, please." He shoved the doctor's hand away. "Get out." The nurses exchanged panicked looks but obeyed. Within moments, the room emptied until only Avery remained, cornered by the storm of his fury. Elliot turned his glare on her, every inch of his voice honed to a blade. "Explain." Avery's lips parted, words tumbling before she could shape them. "Your family, your board. My stepmother arranged, my father's company was collapsing." So they sold you to me, he said, each word dripping with disgust. A convenient merger. A signature on a deathbed. Her spine stiffened. It wasn't like that. I didn't have a choice. He laughed once, dry and low. Choice? You had enough choice to say I do. The cruelty in his eyes made her step back. This wasn't a man just woken from a coma, it was a man who had clawed his way out of darkness only to find betrayal waiting. You think you can walk into my life wearing my name? He said. Take my house, my estate, my company, and play the grieving bride while I lay half dead. I didn't take anything, Avery whispered. I just tried to survive. Survive, he repeated softly, as if tasting the word. Then listen carefully, Mrs. Foster. The next time you or anyone mentions heirs, or children, or anything that ties you to my bloodline, he leaned forward, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. I'll kill them. With my own hands. Avery froze. The air left her lungs. He wasn't shouting anymore. That made it worse. You don't mean. I mean exactly that. His gaze cut through her like a knife. I don't know what kind of trap this is, but I won't be your puppet. You and whatever schemes your family bred will end the moment I sign the annulment papers. Her fingers clutched the rail of the bed to steady herself. Beneath the shock, nausea twisted deep in her stomach. Because she knew. 2 weeks before this day, long before his eyes opened, she had felt the unmistakable flutter inside her. A heartbeat smaller than a pearl. She hadn't told anyone. Not even her father. And now the father of that child had promised to kill what he didn't yet know existed. The doctors insisted Elliot rest, but the mansion's news spread faster than reason. By nightfall the entire household knew, the big shot had awakened. Lights blazed across the estate. Reporters gathered at the gates, drones circling like vultures. Avery slipped through the side corridor unnoticed, her hands pressed to her abdomen. The nurse's earlier congratulations echoed in her head. You're about 8 weeks along. 8 weeks. A lifetime and a secret. Elliot refused to stay at the hospital. By morning he was home, walking with a cane, fury fueling every step. Staff lined the hall as he passed, none dared speak. In the grand foyer, Avery waited under the chandelier's cold light. Her wedding ring still caught the glow. He stopped several feet from her. You're still here. I live here. Not for long. His voice was steadier now, controlled and lethal. My lawyers will arrange the dissolution. You'll receive compensation, whatever your stepmother demanded, and then you'll vanish. And if I refuse? Then I'll expose the contract your father signed. Every debt, every falsified merger. I'll make sure the Tate name becomes a synonym for fraud. Her breath hitched, anger flaring through fear. You think money gives you the right to destroy people? He stepped closer until she could smell the antiseptic still clinging to his skin. It gives me the right to protect what's mine. Avery's pulse thundered. I didn't want this marriage any more than you did. But you were dying, and they... Stop pretending it was mercy, he snapped. You're part of their deal. She held his gaze. Maybe I was. But I'm not your enemy. Something flickered in his eyes, doubt, perhaps, but it vanished. You already are. That night, she packed a suitcase. Rain beat against the windows like the night he woke. She told herself she was leaving before things got worse, before he could make good on his threat. But as she reached the door, she heard a crash from upstairs. Glass shattering. Voices. She ran toward the noise. Elliot stood in his study amid broken bottles, breathing hard, hand bleeding from where he'd smashed a decanter. His cane lay on the floor. Elliot. Get out. You're hurt. I said get out. She hesitated. The old instincts warred with a new one, a strange, unwelcome pull toward the wreck of a man in front of her. His eyes met hers, wild and lost. For a second she saw not rage but terror, the realization that he had been gone for years, and the world had rewritten itself without him. You don't understand, he murmured, voice breaking. They took everything while I slept. Avery's throat ached. Then stop destroying what's left. He turned away, shoulders shaking once. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, but colder. "If you're still here by morning, I'll make sure you regret it." She didn't answer. When she returned to her room, she sank to the floor, clutching her abdomen. Her hands trembled over the small, hidden curve beneath her nightgown. "Please," she whispered to the life inside her. "Stay quiet. Stay safe." Outside, the storm intensified. Thunder rolled over the mansion, drowning the sound of her quiet sobs. Dawn crept in gray and heavy. Avery hadn't slept. She was still on the floor when the intercom clicked. "Mrs. Foster," the housekeeper's voice crackled through. "Mr. Foster requests your presence in the east parlor." Her stomach dropped. She wiped her face, rose, and forced herself toward the corridor. The parlor doors stood open. Elliot waited beside the window, a folder in hand. He looked almost composed, dressed in black, but his jaw was set like iron. "I've drafted the annulment papers," he said without turning. "Sign them, and you can go." She stepped forward, fingers trembling. "If I sign, my father loses everything. The contract will be void." "That's not my problem." Her pulse hammered. "If he finds out, if he suspects." "Elliot," she whispered. "What if things have already gone too far to undo?" He faced her then, eyes narrowing. "What does that mean?" Her mouth opened, then closed. The words "I'm pregnant" stuck like thorns in her throat. "I mean, damage. Reputation. People already know we're married. Maybe ending it right now could." He cut her off. "Don't test me." He pressed the pen into her hand. "Sign." Avery looked down at the paper. Her name was already printed beneath his. Beside it, a line waited. She could feel the pulse of her own heartbeat beneath the unborn one inside her. She set the pen on the page. And then, she dropped it. Her palms slick with sweat, the pen clattered to the marble. Elliot's eyes narrowed. "What's wrong with you?" Before she could answer, a faint noise cut through the silence, barely audible, a whisper of static from the intercom. Then a child's voice crackled through the speaker system. "Come and get us, if you can." Avery's breath caught. Elliot turned sharply toward the sound. What the hell was that? She stared at the speaker, blood draining from her face. That voice, high, curious, innocent, didn't belong to any child in the house. Because the twins she would someday bear were still years away from being born. And yet, somehow, the words hung in the air like a prophecy. The second pink line wasn't faint, it burned into existence like a flare. Avery stood alone in the marble guest bathroom, the house quiet as a held breath. Rain ticked against the window, a metronome for panic. She'd bought the test in town under a different name, buried at the bottom of a paper bag beneath a carton of milk she didn't need. Now, in the cold glow of the vanity lights, there was no escaping it. Pregnant. 8 weeks, the nurse had guessed days ago. The nurse who'd smiled like this was good news. Avery pressed both palms to the cool counter. She looked up and didn't recognize the woman in the mirror, pale, composed, and terrified in a way that didn't show on her face. Behind her reflection, the mansion stretched out in tasteful shadows. White lilies, muted paintings, a corridor of soft lamps humming like constraints. If he knew, he would end everything. "I'll kill them with my own hands." His voice replayed inside her skull as precisely as a surgeon's cut. The intercom clicked once, the old brass grill near the ceiling that carried orders across the house. "Mrs. Foster?" The housekeeper's voice, warm with a hush. "It's Imani. May I come up?" Avery tucked the test into her pocket and opened the door. Imani stood in the hall with a tray, tea and dry toast, wearing her gray sweater instead of the stiff uniform. Her expression was careful, but her eyes were softer than anyone else's in this house had ever allowed themselves to be. "You didn't come to dinner," Imani said, setting the tray on the dresser. "I thought, perhaps you needed something gentle." Avery swallowed. "You don't have to." "I do." Imani's gaze flicked over Avery's shoulder, then back. "Walk with me." "Not here." They moved through the guest wing, past a gallery of black and white photographs that made the house look like a museum. Imani led her into a small laundry room and shut the door. The hum of machines swallowed their voices. I don't ask questions I cannot protect the answers to, Imani said. But there are times a woman simply knows when another woman has reached enough. Avery held Imani's gaze and said the thing that made her throat burn. I'm leaving. Imani nodded once, like she had been waiting for the truth to become a word. Tonight, then. I don't know how, Avery whispered. He's everywhere. He has eyes in the walls. Not everywhere. Imani crossed to a cabinet and reached up. From behind a stack of starch, she pulled out a small tin, biscuits on the label, something heavier inside. The tin rattled softly with keys, an old phone, and a passport in a worn case. You'll need cash. Not cards. Not drivers. Cash leaves no thank you notes to banks. Avery stared. You planned this. I planned for floods in houses built beside rivers, Imani said simply. I've worked for families like this my whole life. Money buys locks. It also buys arrogance. Avery exhaled a shudder. If he finds out you helped. He won't. I know which cameras are real and which are there to make staff behave. Imani's mouth twitched. He thinks fear is surveillance. Imani, Avery said, why are you doing this? I'm a stranger who married into your employer's life. Imani's eyes softened again. You're not the first girl forced into a story she didn't write. She lifted the old phone from the tin. It's a relic, but it works. Numbers preloaded, a driver who doesn't mind the dark, a woman at a clinic in Cascais who will ask for cash and say good luck in Portuguese. Portugal? Avery asked, blinking. Lisbon is full of ghosts and music, Imani said. It swallows questions. Also, Mr. Hayes has no contracts there. It is exactly far enough and just familiar enough for a woman to breathe. The name Hayes sent a cold current through Avery's veins. Elliot's chief of staff had observed her like a problem to be solved. If anyone would hunt her, it would be him. Imani reached out and squeezed Avery's hand, quick and firm. You will need to be brave for a few hours. Then you will need to be brave again for many months. But there will be moments you forget you are brave, because you will be busy loving something more. Avery's throat ached. She nodded. Tell me what to do. Night fell like a blackout. Imani waited until the storm wore itself down to a silver drizzle. At midnight, she killed the lights in the service corridor and tripped a breaker in the east wing. On cue, a section of the house flickered. The cameras there were real. The panic wouldn't be. Go, she whispered, handing Avery a small backpack. Inside, rolled bills, a change of clothes, 3 passports, Avery Tate in one, Avery Beaumont in another, and a clean one with only a Beaumont and a blank country. Use Tate at the airport. Switch to Beaumont in Lisbon. Braid your hair. Take off the ring. Avery slid the wedding band from her finger. It left a pale circle of skin like a healed wound. They moved like shadows, down the servants' stairs that smelled faintly of lemon oil and old steam, across the pantry where daylight never came. Imani took a key from her sweater and opened a narrow door behind a rack of copper pots. Cold air breathed up from the dark. The freight lift, she said. It opens into the garage, behind the shuttle. They descended by feel and memory. At the bottom, the lift opened into a strip of shadow behind a line of cars. Through the panes of the garage office, a guard watched a muted sports game, engrossed and half asleep. Avery's heartbeat measured each step. She could feel the small gravity beneath her ribs, invisible and absolute. Imani touched her elbow, then pointed. At the far exit, a van idled with its lights off. The driver's silhouette was all angles, cap low, jacket zipped. Jonah, Imani whispered. He was a mechanic before he learned that engines talk too much when they're new. He's been waiting 20 minutes. We don't wait longer. Imani, Avery said. The word was full of everything she couldn't fit into sentences. Write me no letters, Imani said. But send me light sometimes. I'll read it in the news that does not mention you. She pulled Avery into a brief, fierce hug. Go. Avery ran bent at the waist, the way you run when you think being tall might make you a target. She slid the side door open. Jonah didn't look at her face, he only checked the mirror, then pulled them out into the rain with the caution of a man who has outlived his good luck. No alarm. No shout. The gate rolled open like it always did on nights when no one left. As the van turned onto the road, Avery looked back at one lit window on the second floor, the study. A shadow crossed by the desk. It might have been a trick of lightning. It might have been Elliot, wakeful, insomniac, a bruise of a man with a cane, staring into the storm and knowing nothing, or everything. She closed her eyes. Airport? Jonah asked, voice low. Train, Avery said. South. Then a ferry. Then the airport. Good, Jonah said. You don't put all your footprints in the same mud. He drove without radio, without conversation. The world narrowed to wipers and the hiss of wet roads. They cut across the sleeping city and under the highway toward a small station where the night trains still came like secrets. At the curb, Jonah parked under an overhang. Tickets? He asked. Avery's fingers trembled around the backpack. I'll buy them cash. Jonah reached into the glove compartment and pushed 2 paper rectangles into her hand. Bought them when she called me, he said. Men like Elliot pay for power. Power makes schedules. Schedules make you easy to find. So we make noise with randomness. She stared at him. Why are you helping me? Imani asked, he said. That's enough. And I don't like men who forget they are human when they wake up rich again. The platform was nearly empty. A drunken pair of lovers kissed in a pool of light. A man slept beneath a newspaper with his shoes for a pillow. Avery pulled her hood up and kept her head down. For a terrifying second, she imagined Mr. Hayes stepping from the shadow with a pen and a plane ticket, polite as poison. No one stopped her. No one saw her. The train came hissing like a large animal. She boarded and found a seat by a fogged window. The car smelled of wet wool and dust. In the reflection, she watched herself become no one. An hour later they changed trains at a town whose name she did not read. From there, a ferry at dawn carried her and a dozen fishermen across a strip of grey water while gulls argued with the engine. Salt rode the air, and cold made her ribs tight. She stood at the rail and watched the foam break, feeling the first thin filament of distance pull taut. She had not cried yet. She could not afford to. The flight she chose was not the fastest. It was, by Jonah's logic, the least likely. She paid in cash at the ticket counter like a stubborn anachronism. The clerk raised an eyebrow, but money is fluent in every airport. At security, she removed a bracelet, rolled her sleeves, breathed in and out as if the metal detector could smell fear. A guard waved her through. She put her shoes back on with hands that would not stop shaking. At the gate, she sat near a family with a squirming toddler and a teenager who looked at everything with suspicion. She pretended to be invisible by surrounding herself with other people's noise. Her burner phone buzzed once. A text from an unknown number, as short as a flick of a knife. Ocean's calmest at the deepest point. Imani. Avery held the phone like a talisman and typed the only reply that felt safe to send across the world. Thank you for the door. She turned the device off and slid it into her bra. On the plane, she pressed her forehead to the oval window and watched the runway become speed, then blur, then sky. Somewhere in the cabin a child laughed, high and silver. She placed a hand over her abdomen and imagined a heartbeat smaller than a pearl stubbornly refusing to stop. Breathe, she whispered into the engine's roar. We're going. When she woke, Lisbon was blue and white beneath her, the river like a strip of tinfoil, roofs like terracotta scales, hills stacked with houses as if the city had been poured and allowed to dry where it landed. Music drifted in through the jetway from somewhere, a guitar, or the memory of one. At the border, the officer looked at her passport. The name read Avery Tate. He stamped it without ceremony. Outside, in the arrival's crush, she ducked into a restroom and changed in a locked stall. Her old clothes vanished into a bin liner. She braided her hair, slid on sunglasses, and tucked a different passport into her wallet, Avery Beaumont. The wedding ring stayed in the backpack, wrapped in a sock. By afternoon, she had a room in a small, clean apartment in Alfama that smelled like soap and orange peel. The landlord had not asked for a lease, cash made honesty negotiable. From the balcony, She could see laundry strung like flags between windows and hear a radio playing fado so soft it seemed to come from the stones themselves. For the first time since the test, she let herself sit. When she stood, she was already moving toward the clinic address texted by Imani's eye. The clinic was painted the color of eggshells and optimism. A woman at the desk asked for her name without asking for an ID. Beaumont, Avery said. Quanto tempo? The woman asked, then switched to English smoothly. How many weeks? 8, Avery said. Maybe 9 now. The doctor, gray hair, kind mouth, did not offer congratulations too early. She asked questions that felt like lifelines. Are you eating? Do you have safe housing? Do you have someone to call? I have a place, Avery said. I have help, at least for now. They did the scan in a room with a paper curtain and a poster of a sunrise. The machine hummed. The doctor frowned, then smiled in a way that rearranged the air. Do you hear that? The doctor said softly. A heartbeat. No, 2. Like a skipping rope being used by 2 children at once. One quick, one just as quick. Avery couldn't speak. She had not let herself dream a shape for the future yet. She stared at the foggy constellation on the screen and saw a storm of white points that were not stars but something better. Twins, the doctor said gently. Fraternal, I suspect. Avery laughed, a small sound that broke on itself halfway out. It wasn't happy so much as stunned. Twice the fear, twice the reason to move, twice the risk, twice the reason to live. She covered her mouth with her hand and nodded hard because language had become a fragile thing. The doctor touched her shoulder. You are strong, she said, as if that could be prescribed. Come back in 2 weeks. Cash is fine. Outside, the light had shifted to gold, and the street smelled like coffee and rain at the same time. Avery walked without remembering to look at street names, turning where the ground told her to. Her phone remained a dark rectangle against her heartbeat. At the corner, a newsstand TV blared a financial channel in Portuguese. She did not need to understand the words to know those graphs belonged to the Foster empire. Elliot's face flashed on the screen, stern, handsome, alive. Under the image, a scroll of text. In English, one bite of it, Foster annulment imminent, board meets Friday. Her throat dried. She turned away and almost collided with a man carrying flowers. He apologized in rapid Portuguese and already moved on, leaving the scent of lilies and wet paper behind. She lifted her chin. She had run. She had crossed water and border and language. She had made it this far. She would not go back. The apartment greeted her with cool tile and a square of late sun on the floor. She locked the door, set the backpack on the table, and reached for the old phone to text Imani 2 words. We're okay. Before she could press send, someone knocked. 3 slow taps. Not a neighbor's brisk rhythm, not a drunk's sloppy fist. Her skin tightened. She walked to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway swam under a trembling lens. A man in a dark suit stood with his back to the camera, as if deliberately offering her only that, the shape of a stranger refusing to be known. His hair was cut close, his shoes were not tourist shoes. Avery stepped back without breathing. Another knock. The same 3 measured strokes. She put her palm to her abdomen, as if that could make a shield. Quemi, she called through the wood, forcing a Portuguese she had practiced between flights. Silence. Then, in precise English, a voice like a file smoothing metal. Mrs. Foster, the man said, as if the name belonged to him. Get in the car. The old phone buzzed in her hand. A text from an unknown number flooded the little screen. Do not open the door. Go out through the kitchen window. 2 floors down, left stairwell. Now. Avery stared at the message, then at the door, where a shadow shifted, patient, confident. He knocked again, softer. We can do this politely, or we can do this the way Mr. Foster prefers. Mr. Foster. The words slid under the door like a draft. Avery crossed the room in 3 steps. The kitchen window was small and obstinate. She shoved it up. It stuck, then jerked open with a squeal like a frightened animal. Outside, a narrow shaft of air and light. To the left, a rusted stair that looked like it had never been trusted. The handle on the door jiggled, then settled. The lock held. Avery, the man's voice said, close enough now that she could hear him exhale her name like a fact he intended to correct. This is your only gentle warning. Her backpack already hung on her shoulder. She swung her leg through the window and felt the city's heat brush her face. In the hallway, the man's phone rang. He answered in a tone that made apologies sound like verdicts. Yes, Mr. Foster. I have her door. No, she hasn't moved. He paused. Listened. Understood, he said at last. 2 minutes. Avery gripped the sill until her knuckles burned. 2 minutes. She took the drop to the landing hard enough to bite her tongue. Blood tasted like pennies in her mouth. She turned left again. Imani's directions rewound in her head like a lifeline, and raced down the iron spine of the building as if speed could make silence. Somewhere above, a key scraped into a lock. Now, she whispered to the 2 heartbeats no one else yet knew about. Now. She hit the street, turned down a lane tight with laundry, and threw herself into the crowd moving toward the tram. A bell clanged, pigeons scattered, someone laughed mid-argument. The city swallowed her like a place that has learned how. She didn't look back. And so she didn't see the man in the dark suit step into her empty apartment and glance once at the open window, his mouth tilting almost, into a smile. He took his phone from his pocket and spoke in perfect calm. Mr. Foster, he said. Your wife runs very well. The voice on the other end answered with a silence that sounded like a decision. Proceed? The man asked. The line clicked, as if something final had just been lifted. He nodded to no one, then turned toward the balcony as if Lisbon itself were a map he'd already memorized. Understood, Mr. Hayes said. We'll bring her home. The plane began its descent over a city she had once vowed never to see again. Through the window, Avery saw a grid of light spreading like veins across the dark. Home. The word didn't fit anymore, it was an echo of something that used to be safe. In the seat beside her, Layla slept with her head against Avery's shoulder, clutching the worn stuffed rabbit that had survived every move, every border. Hayden was awake, of course, earbuds in, fingers tapping across the small keyboard of a modified tablet he'd built from spare parts. He claimed it relaxed him. Avery had learned not to ask too many questions about what relaxed meant for a mind like his. When the wheels hit the runway, Layla stirred. We're here. Yes, Avery said. Her voice came out thinner than she intended. We're here. Hayden looked up from his screen, eyes the same storm gray as his father's. Is he? Avery flinched. Who? The man from the news feeds. Elliot Foster. You said this is his city. She nodded once. It's a big city. We'll stay invisible. Hayden's mouth curved, not a smile, not yet, something hung between challenge and curiosity. Invisible's boring. The apartment they rented smelled of new paint and salt from the sea wind that blew in through cracked windows. 2 bedrooms, 1 view of the harbor, and a door Avery could bolt twice. She unpacked methodically, clothes, their few books, the laptop she'd disabled to keep Hayden from upgrading it again. Layla wandered through the space, touching things as if memorizing them. Can we keep this one? She asked. This place? For a while, Avery said. Long enough to breathe. The twins exchanged a look only they understood. Layla's caution balanced Hayden's velocity. Together they made a kind of peace that Avery both relied on and feared. After dinner, she turned on the television for noise. The channel was financial news, the kind that filled silence with power. And then, there he was. Elliot Foster. Older now, sharper, every movement controlled. The caption beneath him read Foster Tech announces global security initiative. He spoke about innovation and integrity in that calm, dangerous voice that had once promised her annihilation. Layla leaned forward, fascinated. He looks lonely. Avery's hand shot out and switched off the screen. The room went dark except for the city's glow through the window. Don't ever say that name again, she said. Do you hear me? Stay away from that man. He's sworn to kill you both. Layla blinked, startled by the ferocity in her mother's tone. Hayden studied Avery's face with something colder than fear, something like calculation. Why? He asked. Because he thinks he was betrayed, Avery said. Because he's powerful enough to erase anything he decides doesn't belong in his world. Layla pressed her lips together and nodded, eyes downcast. Hayden didn't. He stared at the blank television like it had just offered him a puzzle. Weeks passed. Avery found work translating documents for a logistics firm, quiet work she could do from home. Layla started art classes and filled sketchbooks with faces, some real, some imagined. Hayden took apart everything he could find: the microwave, an old alarm clock, a router he borrowed from the neighbor's trash. He called it curiosity. Avery called it temptation. One evening she came home from the market to find him sitting cross-legged on the floor surrounded by circuits and wires. "Homework?" she asked carefully. "Sort of," he said. "They're teaching basic coding at school. It's primitive." "Hayden." He held up a hand. "Don't worry, Mom. I'm not breaking laws. Yet." He grinned, the flash of Elliot's arrogance softened by her own gentleness. Avery's chest tightened. "Promise me you won't dig where you shouldn't." He looked up, expression suddenly earnest. "If someone built walls around your life, wouldn't you want to know who they're keeping out?" She didn't answer. There were no safe answers. Layla noticed the tension first. "He's doing something," she whispered one night as Avery tucked her in. "He hides things on his tablet. And he doesn't sleep." Avery brushed her daughter's hair back. "He's just restless." Layla shook her head. "No. He's planning." When Avery confronted him, he was in bed, pretending to read. She lifted the blanket. The tablet glowed beneath it like a secret flame. "Give it," she said. He hesitated, then handed it over. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, dense, purposeful, beautiful in a terrifying way. At the top corner, fostertech.firewall.bypass. Avery felt the world tilt. "Hayden, what is this?" "Information," he said. "You said he's dangerous. I wanted to see why." "You're hacking your father's company." He didn't deny it. "He builds the systems that spy on half the world. Don't you want to know what he's hiding?" Her voice shook. "He's hiding you. That's why we're still alive." The words hit the air like an alarm. Layla stood in the doorway, silent tears on her cheeks. Hayden's face changed, not guilt, exactly, but realization. "You're still scared of him." "Yes," Avery said. "And you should be too." He looked away. "I'm not." Days later, the first storm of autumn hit. Rain hammered the roof, wind howled through the narrow streets. Avery tried to work, but the screen blurred. Layla painted at the table, small hands steady. Hayden sat near the window, eyes flicking between his tablet and the lightning outside. "You're quiet tonight," Avery said. He smiled without looking up. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About justice." The word sounded too old for him. She crossed to him, but before she could speak, the lights flickered once, twice, and went out. Power cut. Layla squealed, delighted. She loved the dark. "Stay here," Avery said, reaching for the flashlight drawer. But Hayden's screen still glowed, feeding on its own battery. Lines of green text crawled upward faster than her eyes could follow. "What are you doing?" He didn't answer. His pupils reflected the light of the code. Somewhere beyond their walls, thunder rolled. Or maybe that was the sound of a distant server groaning under intrusion. Then, the tablet beeped, a single, satisfied tone. On the screen, a black window opened. Inside it, a cursor blinked, waiting. Avery's pulse hammered. "Hayden, stop." He looked up, face illuminated by the storm's strobe. "I just wanted to see if the legend was true." "What legend?" "That nobody can touch Elliot Foster's system." "Hayden." "Turns out," he said softly, "they can." He tapped one final key. The cursor froze. Words appeared, white on black. "Access granted." Avery snatched the tablet, heart racing. But the message on the screen changed before her eyes, letters rearranging themselves as if someone on the other end were typing back. "Who are you?" Hayden's breath caught. He reached for the device. "It's him." "Hayden." She yanked the tablet close, but another line appeared. You have 5 seconds to explain why you're inside my network. Her mind screamed run, run, run. She slammed the power button. The screen went black. Layla whimpered. Mom? Avery forced calm into her voice. Nothing. Just a storm glitch. She hid the tablet in the cupboard and turned the flashlight beam away from her shaking hands. Outside, lightning split the sky. Inside, Hayden stared at the cupboard door where his mother had hidden his masterpiece, and whispered, "His real." Avery didn't hear him over the rain. Across the ocean, in a tower of glass and servers, Elliot Foster looked up from his desk as a red alert blinked across his screen. Unauthorized breach, origin, coastal subnet, domestic. He entered a trace command. The coordinates appeared. He frowned, the ghost of a smile curling one corner of his mouth. Interesting, he murmured. Then he spoke to the empty room. Let's see who dares to knock. He pressed enter. In the dark apartment, the tablet on the shelf vibrated once, an insect hummed, and the screen flashed alive on its own. Across the glass, new words glowed. Found you. Avery turned, too late. The light from the screen painted her face pale, and Hayden's reflection stared back from it, equal parts terror and triumph. Somewhere in the distance, a low hum began, servers waking, signals aligning. And for the first time in 4 years, Avery knew the past was no longer sleeping. The storm had passed, but the air still hummed with static. Avery left early that morning, umbrella snapping against the wind, promising the twins pancakes for dinner if they behaved. The apartment door clicked shut, leaving Hayden and Layla in a silence that felt heavier than quiet. Layla sat at the table with her sketchbook. You scared her last night. Hayden didn't look up from the tablet he'd reclaimed while everyone slept. She overreacted. She was shaking, Layla said. You were, too. He brushed hair from his eyes. That was excitement. Hayden, please, she whispered. Don't touch that thing again. He smiled the way people do when they've already decided. Downstairs, the city was waking, vendors calling out, traffic coughing through puddles, but Hayden's world had narrowed to the glow of his screen. The firewall he'd brushed against last night wasn't like anything he'd studied. It was layered, living, a digital labyrinth built by someone who thought like a general. Every time he hit a dead end, he felt a rush, like playing chess against a ghost. He logged in through a chain of stolen proxies, bypassing consumer Reuters, tunneling through servers in Singapore, then Munich. The tablet trembled slightly from the fan's heat. Lines of code scrolled past faster than the human eye could follow, but he trained himself to read the rhythm, not the words. At the bottom corner of his screen, a timer counted milliseconds. He could almost feel Elliot Foster's empire breathing on the other side. You built this cage, he muttered. Let's see if you can live in it. He entered the command that would push him inside. Access request. Denied. Retry. Denied. Override ghost key equals true. Processing. The monitor flickered once, and then the fortress opened like a wound. Hayden grinned. Hello, Dad. Across the ocean, Foster Tower's 29th floor security room bloomed with alarms. Red banners streaked across the glass walls. Analysts swiveled in their chairs, voices overlapping. External breach detected, source unknown. Layer 7 infiltration, East Coast node. Impossible, that protocol sandboxed. In his office 1 floor above, Elliot Foster looked up from a meeting with 2 board members as the lights dimmed. A single line of text appeared on the wall screen behind him. Intrusion detected, code black. The board members froze. Elliot stood, calm in a way that frightened everyone who worked for him. Get my system lead. Now. Within seconds, the head of cybersecurity, a nervous man named Priya Desai, hurried in clutching a tablet. Sir, we have a live breach. Someone's inside the prototype servers. Inside. Elliot repeated. Yes, sir. But, whoever it is, they're not stealing data. They're exploring. Elliot's eyes narrowed. Exploring? Priya nodded. Tracing architecture, opening and closing test partitions, deleting logs as they go. It's surgical. Sir, this isn't a kid with a laptop. Elliot approached the glass wall overlooking the city. The morning sun turned the skyline into a field of blades. Patch it. We're trying, sir, but they keep anticipating our defenses. It's like they know the codebase intimately. A pause. Elliot's reflection in the glass was expressionless. Show me. Priya mirrored her tablet to the wall display. The screen filled with a black console window. At the top, a blinking cursor waited, and then new text appeared, line by line, from the intruder. Nice maze. Took me an hour. Come and get me, asshole. Gasps rippled through the room. Elliot's jaw flexed once. Trace it. Priya's fingers flew. Working on it, origin signal is bouncing through 4 continents. Trace it, he repeated, voice flat. Whoever this is just made it personal. At that moment, in a small apartment thousands of miles away, Hayden leaned back and exhaled. His pulse thundered in his ears. On the screen, the message he'd sent sat like graffiti on a palace wall. He'd imagined the moment he would see his father's face reading it, the man who had sworn to kill him without ever knowing his name. Got your attention, he whispered. Layla stood in the doorway, silent tears on her cheeks. What did you do? I just knocked on a door, he said. Hayden, that door is a monster's mouth. He turned the tablet so she could see the frozen console. He can't hurt us. He doesn't even know who we are. Layla hugged her arms. You don't know what he can do. He started to answer, then stopped. The tablet vibrated once, an incoming signal, encrypted. Someone was replying. A new message blinked on the screen. Who are you? Then another, seconds later. Do you understand what you've done? Hayden's hands trembled, but he typed anyway. I know exactly what I've done. The cursor flashed, waiting. Then the connection went dead. He exhaled, exhilarated. See? He blinked first. Layla shook her head and ran to her room. Mom's going to find out. And when she does, she'll never forgive you. He stared after her, then at the window where clouds moved like bruises. She'll thank me, he said softly. One day. Elliot paced his office, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. The breach log scrolled endlessly. Whoever this was had reached systems that weren't even on public maps, architecture known only to a handful of engineers and himself. He turned to Priya. Has any rival shown this capability? None, sir. Even corporate espionage groups don't operate like this. They left a message instead of taking files. Elliot's mouth curved into something not quite a smile. Arrogant. Yes, sir. Clean every node. Isolate that entry point. I want the origin within 24 hours. Understood. As she left, he sat back at his desk, fingers steepled. The phrase replayed in his mind, come and get me, asshole. It wasn't the language of a syndicate. It was the language of youth, taunting, impulsive, personal. Yet the skill was beyond anything he'd seen. Whoever had done this didn't want money or data. They wanted him to see. He opened a folder locked beneath 3 layers of encryption. Inside was a single file, an old marriage contract. Avery Tate. The signature in her careful handwriting. He hadn't looked at it in years. He told himself the anger was gone. But the breach had stirred something older than anger, something that felt like fate testing the locks. He whispered to the empty room, "Is this your move, Avery?" That afternoon, oblivious to the war unfolding across servers, Avery started her first day at a downtown translation agency. She wore a gray blazer, hair pinned back, the practiced calm of a woman who knew how to live under a false name. The office was open, full of chatter. Her supervisor, a kind woman named Raina, handed her a folder. Mostly tech contracts today. You've got a good touch with legal phrasing. Avery smiled faintly. I've had practice. While she worked, her phone buzzed, a news alert on the lobby television. Foster Tech suffers major cyber breach. No data compromise reported. Her breath caught. The screen showed Elliot's company logo, swirling blue over white. Reporters speculated about industrial espionage, rival firms, political motives. She stared until the letters blurred. Everything okay? Raina asked. Avery forced a nod. Just déjà vu. By evening, the twins waited for her in the kitchen. Layla's eyes were red. Hayden sat too straight, hands folded. How was your first day? He asked casually. Avery smiled, pretending not to notice the tension. Good. Quiet. We'll be fine here. Layla blurted, Tell her, Hayden. Tell me what? Avery asked. Hayden's voice was steady. I made contact. Her heart stopped. What? With him, Hayden said. With Elliot Foster. The room tilted. Hayden, no. I didn't give names or locations. He doesn't know who we are. You hacked him? She could barely find the air. Do you understand what you've done? He stood, eyes fierce. You said he's a monster. Monsters need mirrors. Hayden. Her voice cracked. He'll find us. He won't, he said. I covered every trail. Every trail except the one that leads to me. Layla flinched as Avery slammed her hand on the table. Silence followed, thick as smoke. Hayden's confidence faltered for the first time. I just wanted him to know he's not untouchable. Avery's hands shook. You think this is a game. But when he finds us, when he finds you, there's no restart button. Layla began to cry. Please stop fighting. Avery turned away, pressing a hand to her mouth. She couldn't let them see how deep the terror ran. Behind her, Hayden's voice softened. Mom, he deserves it. She didn't answer. The rain started again outside, tapping against the window like impatient fingers. That night, Elliot sat in the dark of his penthouse, screens glowing before him. Priya entered quietly. We've traced partial signals, she said. Whoever it is, they used multiple decoys, but one relay came from a domestic ISP near the coast. Near, Elliot repeated. How near? 2 miles radius. We'll have it narrowed by morning. He nodded. Good. When you find them, don't alert law enforcement. Sir. This isn't about prosecution, he said. It's about a conversation. Priya hesitated, then left him alone with the hum of machines. Elliot turned to the console, typed a single command, and opened a private backchannel connection through the same breach the hacker had used. It was reckless, but curiosity was stronger than caution. To unknown user, you're good. Too good to be ordinary. He waited. Half a world away, in the dark apartment, Hayden's tablet, powered off, or so he thought, lit up on the desk beside his bed. The screen glowed with the same line of text. He sat up slowly, heart pounding. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Layla stirred in the next room. Hayden? What's that light? He didn't answer. His mind was fire and adrenaline. He typed back. You finally showed up. A pause. Then the reply came. Tell me who taught you to write like this. Hayden smiled faintly. You did, he whispered, and typed it. The cursor blinked. Then 3 words appeared, deliberate and cold. I will find you. Hayden froze. The glow of the tablet lit his face pale blue. Somewhere in the building, a transformer hummed as power fluctuated. And outside, across the city, in a high-rise window facing the same storm-washed sky, Elliot Foster closed his laptop and murmured into the silence. Let's see which of us finds the other first. At 5:17, the map on the security wall turned from gray to arterial red. A heat halo pulsed over a 2-mile slice of the coast. Cafes, laundromats, second-floor walk-ups, a tram yard streaked with rust. A neighborhood too ordinary to notice itself. The overlay labeled it with a single line, probable origin, 86.2%. Priya Desai rubbed her eyes and pushed her chair back from the console. We've boxed the Phantom, she said, voice hoarse with coffee and no sleep. They're local. Local where? Elliot asked. Here. She pinched to zoom until the street grid broke into names. Rotating hops, but the exit node keeps reappearing inside this footprint. They're bold, sir. Comfortable. Comfortable, Elliot repeated, watching the color breathe. The word felt like an insult. Deploy haze with a soft sweep. No sirens, no badges. Priya hesitated. If it's a corporate actor. It isn't, he said. This isn't theft. It's theater. He stood at the glass, the city still black-blue with an hour before dawn. Somewhere inside that red ring was a kid, or a ghost, who wrote like an heir to a language Elliot had turned into an empire. How do you hate a mind that mirrors your own? You won't find them by scaring the neighborhood, he added. You'll find them by being the only person who isn't. Priya nodded, already typing. Hayden woke before the gulls. He lay still, listening for the sound of his mother moving in the next room. Nothing yet. The apartment was a held breath. He rolled onto his stomach and pulled the tablet from beneath the bed. Night had made the world gentler, morning made it impatient. He cracked his knuckles, a habit his mother hated, and opened the tunnel he'd built from bruised Reuters and borrowed time. A greeting waited from the other side. You're awake early. Hayden's mouth tugged into a grin. So are you. What do you want? He paused. To be seen, he almost typed. Instead. Proof. Of what? That you're not bulletproof. There was a long nothing. He pictured the man reading his words, jaw tight, knuckles pale against a desk that probably cost more than their apartment's rent for a year. Come say that to my face, came back. He laughed. Come and get me, remember? He closed the window before his hands could shake and opened another, his own maze this time, a honeylight interior that looked like a personal blog or a homework portal, designed to seduce a hunter into stepping where he shouldn't. Cat and mouse, he whispered. Except the mouse built the holes. Stop talking to computers, Layla said from the doorway. She was wrapped in a blanket, hair a soft snarl. It makes you sound like Dad. He flinched. Don't call him that. She shrugged, small shoulders lifting like a bird readying to fly. Mom's meeting the new clients today. She made me promise to say the words be gentle to you if you looked like a storm. I am a storm, he said, but quietly. Layla padded over and lay on her stomach beside him, chin in her hands. She watched the code parade and frowned like it was a painting hung crooked. What happens if he finds you? He won't, Hayden said, and because she was his twin, he added in a whisper only she could hear. But if he does, I want to see his eyes when he realizes I'm not afraid. Layla turned her head. You'll be angry your whole life if you make him the mirror you stand in front of. He swallowed and said nothing. Avery buttoned a gray blouse and looped her hair into a low knot. She had slept only in thin slices, dreamt of hotel lobbies and polished floors that swallowed footsteps. Raina had called late, last-minute ask, client mixer, bilingual. Suit up if you can. Avery had said yes because saying no felt like moving backward. On the tram, she stood pressed between a woman with flowers and a boy with a skateboard. She rehearsed small lies in her head, a Beaumont, translation lead. No, I've never been to Foster Tower. No, I don't follow the news. Outside the hotel, a line of black cars idled like sharks. Event staff moved in calm diagonals. Inside, everything was light, stone and glass and money talking quietly to itself. Avery clipped on a name badge and swallowed the memory of another badge from another life. Raina met her at the elevator. Don't be nervous, she said. Smile. Sound smart. Pretend everyone is kinder than they look. Copy, Avery said, and managed a small grin. The doors opened on a ballroom with a view that turned the river into a sheet of hammered silver. Avery made it as far as the coffee before the room shifted around a center the way iron filings gather around a magnet. He had arrived. Elliot Foster didn't stride. He occupied. A dark suit, no tie, the confident economy of a man who never wasted movement. His team flowed behind him like a current, Priya with the alert tired eyes, two board members disguised as casual men. Avery's fingers tightened around the cup until the lid dented. He was older, harder, and beautiful in the way cliffs are beautiful, not because they invite you, but because they don't. She put the cup down very carefully. Miss Beaumont? Raina's voice was a string thrown across a canyon. Come meet the pain lists. Avery's pulse thudded under her skin. One step, then another. She kept her gaze a degree off-center, the way you can look at a solar eclipse without burning. And then a laugh, low, familiar, caught her by the throat and turned her. Their eyes met. The room blurred. The years between collapsed like scaffolding kicked free. Elliot's expression didn't change, but something in it went quiet. Not shock. Not relief. A computation. A math he had been waiting to do and had found no numbers for until now. Mr. Foster, someone said beside him. Our moderator. He extended a hand to Avery without looking away from Elliot. Avery clasped it, hoping her palm wasn't wet. Avery, she stopped, electricity biting the old reflex. Beaumont. Elliot's gaze fell to her badge. His mouth slanted almost imperceptibly. When he spoke, his voice was smooth, tempered steel. Miss Beaumont. She nodded once, efficient, the lie held between them like glass. Avery's pulse thudded under her skin. One step, then another. She kept her gaze a degree off-center, the way you can look at a solar eclipse without burning. And then a laugh, low, familiar, caught her by the throat and turned her. Their eyes met. The room blurred. The years between collapsed like scaffolding kicked free. Elliot's expression didn't change, but something in it went quiet. Not shock. Not relief. A computation. A math he had been waiting to do and had found no numbers for until now. Mr. Foster, someone said beside him. Our moderator. He extended a hand to Avery without looking away from Elliot. Avery clasped it, hoping her palm wasn't wet. Avery, she stopped, electricity biting the old reflex. Beaumont. Elliot's gaze fell to her badge. His mouth slanted almost imperceptibly. When he spoke, his voice was smooth, tempered steel. Miss Beaumont. She nodded once, efficient, the lie held between them like glass. Raina said something about translation frameworks. The moderator said something about market share. Avery answered a question she didn't hear herself answer. Through it all, Elliot remained where he was, not moving closer, not moving away, like a predator pretending to be a painting. When the current of introductions pulled him onward, she let herself breathe. She did not exhale. She let breath trickle, molecule by molecule, back into a body her nerves weren't sure they wanted to inhabit. On the 29th floor of Foster Tower, Mr. Hayes leaned over a bank of monitors. We're warm, he said into his headset. Burst traffic on the coastal grid, same signature as the breach. Pings hard, then ghosts. Door to door? Priya asked. A walk would take an hour to cover everything, Hayes said. We'll start with the nodes, then cafes, then... Wait. A cluster lit up, a public library branch, a laundromat, 3 apartments stacked like a deck. Hayes zoomed. One access point spiked and cooled as if someone were dipping their hand into a river. Send a rider, he said. No uniforms. Outside the hotel, a motorcycle peeled into traffic. The keynote was scheduled like a war, an opening volley from a minister, a statistic in a silk tie, then Elliot. When he took the stage, silence tightened. He spoke about trust, about the ethics of building locks for people who would never meet the locksmith. His voice filled the room in a way microphones envy, effortless, absolute. Avery hated the way it still went through her. She stood at the edge, where the curtains make a shadow that pretends to be a wall. She should have stayed in her seat. She should have left. Instead, the part of her that refused to be chased forever wanted proximity to the danger she had spent 4 years outrunning. A man slid into the shadow beside her without sound. She knew the shape of him before her mind gave him a name. Miss Beaumont, Elliot said softly. She didn't turn. Mr. Foster. You changed your hair, he said, as if they were an old couple noting weather. You changed your city, she said. Cities change for men like me, he said. Hair changes for women like you. She faced him then. And what kind of woman is that? His gaze flicked over her quickly, no cruelty in it, only assessment. Alive. Her throat tightened. Were you taking bets against that? Every night for a year. He let the sentence hang like a punishment. And then I stopped. Congratulations. Don't. The word came out harsher than he intended. He closed his eyes for a beat. When he opened them, he was calm again, the lethal version of calm he wore to meetings that ended with a signed surrender. "Where did you go?" "Away," she said. "Why?" "You wake up from a coma and threaten children," she said. "There isn't a map after that. Only exits." His jaw clenched. There were no children. "No," she said, and swallowed the shard of truth. There weren't. On stage, the audience laughed at a joke Avery hadn't heard. Offstage, two people stood in a shadow and tried not to set themselves on fire. "For what it's worth," he said, voice low, "I don't recall saying that. I know everyone remembers the worst of a man. I know I was not a man for a while." "It's worth nothing," she said. She meant it and didn't. He studied her, and Avery felt a pinned butterfly sensation she had promised herself she would never feel again under his eyes. He searched her face as if the answer to a question he feared asking might be written there. A vibration buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. It buzzed again, insistent. He checked the screen, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "Go," she said. "Your city is changing." "I'm not finished," he said, and the possessive and I hurt in old places. "Neither am I," she said, and stepped away. He didn't follow, but his gaze did. When she slipped into the ballroom's river of bodies, he pressed accept on the call. Hayes' voice, "We've got a live node on the coast. Same fingerprint. Within 1 block. Move," Elliot said. "Already moving." Elliot lifted his head, scanning the room for Ms. Beaumont and finding only strangers. The library was a building that forgot it was a building and remembered it was a refuge. Kids sprawled on carpet with comics. An old man slept upright, snoring like a purr. The public computers glowed a sick office blue. Hayden took a seat in the back corner and slid on headphones he didn't need. He opened the honey portal and watched it catch the back-channel bait like a net mirroring itself. He didn't need the data that would flow through this aperture, he needed the chase. An alert blinked in the corner of his vision. New device on the network. Brand new, yes sir firmware, boxed yesterday, immaculate shoes. He didn't look up. He smiled. "Hello, mouse," he murmured, and moved. He sunk the decoy deeper, led it under doors that weren't doors, down a stair that wasn't a stair, into a room that looked identical to the room they just left. It was a trick any child who'd ever wandered a mirrored funhouse would recognize, which is why grown men always fell for it. Across the street, Hayes watched through the glass as a boy in a hoodie didn't move at all. The screen in the biker's helmet, custom rig, showed packet flows in pretty colors. The kid's machine pulsed without jitter. The other pulses, the ones Hayes had followed, were everywhere and nowhere. "His good," Hayes said. He didn't realize he had said he until Priya said, "He?" "Gut," Hayes said. "Could be a woman. Could be a team. But this looks like a single hand." "And the single hand is where?" she asked. "Right in front of me," he said, and felt the smallest tremor in his certainty, because if the kid was right in front of him, why did every part of his training feel like it belonged to tomorrow and not to now? Hayden closed the session. He stood, left the headphones on the chair like a shed skin, and walked out past Hayes with the careless grace of a boy who had never once been late to anything because he didn't believe time could move without him. Hayes did not turn his head. He let the boy pass. Patience was a weapon too. "Trail him?" Priya asked. "No," Hayes said. "He wants that." He waited 3 beats, then exited on the opposite side, cutting into the alley, moving 2 blocks down, circling back. He didn't want the mouse. He wanted the nest. When he returned to the library block, the signal that had pulsed like a heartbeat was gone, replaced by a silence that was almost a laugh. "Mom?" Layla's whisper came through Avery's phone like a thread pulled desperate. "Please come home." Avery stepped into the hotel stairwell. "What is it? Are you okay?" "Hayden's not here," Layla said. "He left a note that says don't worry, which is code for worry. And there's a man across the street pretending not to watch our door." Avery's vision whitened at the edges. "Go to the back landing," she said. "Take the emergency stairs to the basement. Hide in the laundry room. Stay on the phone with me." "Yes." Avery opened the stairwell door to the service corridor and ran. At the end of the hall, a second door opened silently. Elliot stepped out. He didn't reach for her. He only stood there, the distance between them as thin as paper. You left in a hurry. My kids, she caught herself too late, the plural a live wire that burned as soon as it left her mouth. She saw the word hit him, saw his eyes flicker, then shudder. Kids, he repeated, as if testing a foreign pronunciation. Avery felt the floor tilt beneath her shoes. My neighbor's kids. I walk them sometimes. He said nothing. He let the lie clatter between them and chose not to pick it up. Come with me, he said instead, and it wasn't a request. No. 2 minutes, he said. Somewhere you can leave from first. I want to ask. I can't. Can't, he said softly. Or won't. Both, she said, and pushed past him, shoulder brushing a history neither of them could carry. He didn't follow. Not because he couldn't. Because his phone was buzzing again, and this time he answered without looking away from the woman moving away from him with a speed that looked like grief. Hayes' voice, clipped, we lost the burst. But the block's right. Give me time. How much? Elliot said. Enough, Hayes said. And not enough. Elliot ended the call and stood alone in a corridor that smelled like citrus and electricity. He closed his eyes for one slow breath, then went back to his stage to say closing words to strangers. Avery ran until the hotel was behind her and the tram wires made black lines against a white sky. The phone stayed at her ear. I'm almost there, she told Layla. Count lights to me. Tell me what you can see. 3 lights, Layla whispered. A laundry basket. A poster of a dog. I hear the elevator. Mom? I'm here. She cut across a side street and stopped dead. A motorcycle idled a block down. A man in a dark jacket looked at his watch without looking at it. He had the posture of someone who could be anyone until he had to be himself, and then it would be too late. She turned the other way, ducked through the back court where laundry snapped like anxious flags, and reached her building through the alley that always smelled like oranges and gasoline. Inside, she took the stairs 2 at a time and pulled open the basement door. Layla flew into her arms, all elbows and heartbeat. Avery folded around her daughter and breathed in the shape of her. Where is he? She whispered. Layla lifted the note. Avery recognized Hayden's messy confidence. Don't worry. Be back by 5. I promise. It was 4:47. Avery wanted to shake the clock until time spilled out faster. Okay, she said. Okay. Footsteps sounded above them. Not neighbors. Weight distributed like a man who knew how to learn rooms with his feet. Avery pushed Layla behind the washers and crouched with her, breath shallow, phone dimmed. Upstairs, a soft knock sounded at their apartment door. 3 measured taps. Not police. Not a friend. Avery's phone buzzed in her palm, an unknown number, the country code like a memory of a life she should never have had. She answered because fear made choices for you. Mrs. Foster, Hayes said, polite as a closed elevator. Tell your son to come home. Avery's mouth went dry. You have the wrong. You can hang up, Hayes said. Or you can keep this from becoming noisy. You have, he paused, as if listening to a second voice, 12 minutes. The line clicked dead. Avery stared at the stairs as if they could tell her which decision hurt least. Layla's hand found hers and squeezed. Outside, in the crowd across the street, Hayden turned the corner with the careless step of a boy who had won a game he didn't know had another level. He saw the motorcycle. He saw the man. He saw his mother's face at the basement window, white, urgent, almost a prayer. He understood everything at once. He smiled, bright, reckless, his father's smile and hers, defiance threaded with love, and lifted the tablet like a match. The motorcycle's engine revved. A door upstairs opened. And in a glass tower miles away, Elliot Foster, mid-sentence on a stage full of applause, felt his phone thrum against his ribs and knew, without knowing how, that whatever came next would not be a hunt. It would be a collision. Rain returned the next morning, fine and constant, as if the sky had decided to whisper instead of shout. Avery stood in the kitchen, spoon still in the coffee cup she hadn't touched, when the phone rang. "Mrs. Beaumont?" The voice was calm but official. "This is St. Luke's Primary. Your daughter fainted during art class. She's awake now, but would like you to come." The spoon clattered onto the counter. "I'm on my way." Hayden appeared in the doorway, hair sticking up, tablet under his arm. "What's wrong?" "It's Layla," she said, already reaching for her coat. "She's at the hospital." He paled. "I'll come." "No, stay here. I'm not a baby." "Hayden." Her voice cracked the air like glass. He froze. "Please. Stay." She was gone before he could promise. St. Luke's Hospital was the kind of place that smelled of lemons and fear. Avery hurried down the corridor toward the pediatric wing, heels echoing in uneven rhythm. At the end of the hall, a nurse pointed her to room 213. Layla lay propped against the pillow, pale but smiling weakly. "Mom, don't look like that. I just got dizzy." Avery brushed hair from her forehead. "You scared me." "I'm fine. The doctor said it's stress. Maybe I think too much." Avery exhaled a tremor she didn't realize she'd been holding. Then stopped thinking for a day. She turned to thank the nurse, and froze. Elliot Foster stood at the admissions desk 20 feet away, flanked by two of his security aides. He wore no tie, coat open, the gray of his shirt catching the sterile light. He wasn't supposed to be here, this hospital, this moment, but there he was, talking quietly to a doctor. The world contracted until only sound remained, the sharp beat of her heart, the hum of the fluorescent lights, Layla's soft breathing. He turned as if he'd felt her watching. Their eyes met. 4 years collapsed in that glance. Elliot hadn't planned to stop by St. Luke's. He'd come because the security trace from the hacker's signal, his hacker, had pinged near this district again. One of his data analysts was being treated for exhaustion here, and he'd agreed to drop in. Fate, it seemed, had other algorithms. He saw her before he understood why the corridor tilted. The woman standing outside room 213 with her hand on a child's shoulder was not a ghost. She was oxygen, reappearing after years of drowning. "Avery." He walked toward her before reason could assemble an argument. Every footstep sounded too loud. She straightened, a deer deciding whether the light ahead was salvation or gunfire. "Miss Beaumont," he said softly. She flinched at the false name. "Mr. Foster." He looked past her into the room. The girl on the bed turned toward him, and his breath locked. The shape of her eyes, the tilt of her chin, they were reflections he saw every morning shaving in the mirror. And then a voice behind him, bright and careless. "Mom?" A boy, same age. The boy from the photograph he'd never had, the son he'd never known he wanted until this instant. 2 of them. Twins. Elliot's world slid sideways. The hallway noise faded to a low hum. "These are my children." The words were barely sound, raw from disbelief. Avery's back hit the door frame as if she needed it to stay upright. "Keep your voice down. Answer me." "They're mine," she said. He took a step closer. "Avery." She shook her head sharply. "You don't get to say my name. Not here." He looked from her to the children again. Layla watched with wide, questioning eyes. The boy, Hayden, he heard her call him, stood protectively beside his sister, chin up in a gesture Elliot knew too well. "Why didn't you tell me?" Elliot asked, voice cracking. "Because the last time we spoke," Avery said, trembling, "you promised to kill them." He blinked, memory like ice water, words shouted in a hospital room years ago, half awake, half human, blind with fury. I didn't mean." "You did." Her voice sliced clean through the corridor. "You said it, Elliot. I heard it. And I believed you. So I ran." He stared at her as the guilt bloomed, slow and merciless. Every decision, every cruel defense mechanism he'd built to survive those lost years suddenly meant nothing. "You could have told me later," he whispered. "When I came back to myself." "Come back," she said. "Do you think I waited for that? You were a hurricane. You don't rebuild under one, you get out before it takes everything." A nurse appeared, startled by the tension. Is everything all right? Avery found her voice. Yes. We were just leaving. She turned to Layla. Sweetheart, grab your sweater. Layla hesitated. Mom, he looks like. Now. Elliot's hand caught Avery's wrist before she could move. Don't walk away again. Her voice shook, low and fierce. You don't touch me in front of them. He released her instantly, shame flushing through the space his fingers had occupied. I'm not that man anymore. She looked at him, eyes wet but hard. You're exactly that man. You're just standing. For a moment, neither moved. The hospital hum carried around them, the monitors, the intercom calling a code, the distant cry of a newborn. It was a symphony of second chances, cruel in its timing. Elliot's aide stepped closer. Sir, we have the car. Wait outside, Elliot said without looking away from Avery. The aide nodded and vanished. You've been living 2 miles from my headquarters, Elliot said quietly. You must have known I'd find you. I knew you'd try, she said. He ran a hand through his hair. I spent 4 years trying to forget you. Turns out forgetting doesn't delete anything, it just compresses the file. She almost smiled, and the almost broke him. Layla tugged Avery's sleeve. Mom, can we go home? Yes, baby. Avery looked at the nurse. We're discharged, right? Just need to sign the release, the nurse said gently, sensing an emotional minefield and backing away. As Avery stepped into the office to sign, Elliot crouched beside the twins. What's your name? He asked softly. The boy studied him. Why? Because I think I'm supposed to know it. Hayden, he said finally. And that's my sister, Layla. Hayden, Elliot repeated, letting the name settle in his mouth. You like computers? The boy's eyes narrowed. You'd like to know. Elliot almost laughed. Smart, he thought. Too smart. Be careful who you challenge, he said. Hayden's reply was quiet but direct. Be careful who you underestimate. The room around them seemed to tilt again. For the first time, Elliot wasn't sure who he was speaking to, a child or a reflection of himself, uncorrupted by age. Avery returned, holding the release papers. Her voice was brittle. We're done here. Elliot straightened. We need to talk. There's nothing left to say. There's everything to say. His tone hardened. You can hate me all you want, but those children. They're not your redemption, she cut in. They're not proof you changed. They're mine. Mine to protect, mine to raise, mine to keep out of your world. Her words hit him like small, precise detonations. I would never hurt them. You already did. She turned to go, pulling Layla's hand into hers. Hayden lingered a second longer, eyes locked on Elliot's. For a heartbeat, the air between them was recognition, not war. Then Avery's voice, Hayden. He followed her out. Elliot stood in the hallway, watching the elevator doors close. Inside, Avery pulled her children close. Outside, he saw his own reflection vanish into the steel as if swallowed. Priya found him minutes later, holding a folder. Sir, we finally cracked the signal source. The hacker, it was a juvenile account, rerouted through a dozen decoys, but the fingerprints are, she hesitated. They match something familiar. Your own code patterns, early designs from your archive. Someone who learned from you. Elliot didn't move. Send it to my desk. Yes, sir. Are you all right? He looked down the empty corridor where his family, had just disappeared. No. Priya hesitated. Do you want me to continue tracing? He shook his head. Not yet. When she left, he stood alone beside the elevator doors. In the metal reflection, his own eyes stared back, rimmed in disbelief. He whispered to it, they're mine. And in that whisper, something inside him fractured, the first crack in a wall that had kept him cold and safe for too long. Outside, rain slicked the parking lot into mirrors. Avery hurried the twins toward the car, fumbling with keys that wouldn't find the lock. Mom? Layla said softly. Who was that man? No one will ever see again, she said, her voice trembling. Hayden glanced back toward the hospital doors where a dark silhouette still stood watching. He doesn't look like no one. Get in, she said. As she pulled onto the street, she checked the mirror once, saw the tower of glass beyond the city rising into the gray sky. Her heart stuttered with something between sorrow and dread. Back inside, Elliot turned from the window and picked up his phone. Hayes, he said, voice barely controlled. Cancel the search. But keep eyes on the coastal district. Quietly. Sir. Just in case I decide to stop being a coward. He ended the call and stared at the rain tracing patterns down the glass, tiny lines converging, splitting, meeting again, like bloodlines he could no longer ignore. Avery's phone buzzed as she reached a stoplight. An unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then the message appeared, simple, undeniable. You should have told me sooner. Her hands shook. She deleted it, heart pounding. But when she looked up, the reflection in the rearview mirror wasn't just hers anymore. Two pairs of eyes watched from the back seat, one frightened, one curious, both waiting for the truth she could no longer keep buried. She gripped the steering wheel and whispered, I did it to save you. Outside, lightning cut the sky in half. And somewhere behind that storm, a man who had once sworn to destroy his own future whispered the same words, but to himself. I did it to save you. The storm answered with silence. The city outside Elliot's penthouse blurred beneath morning rain, a wash of steel and glass that matched the heaviness behind his eyes. The folder on his desk had been sitting unopened for an hour, Avery Tate's name typed neatly on the tab. He reached for it like a man touching something sacred and dangerous. Inside were pieces of a puzzle that refused to stay buried. Hospital records. Psychological reports. Medication lists. Scans of signatures that belonged to other people but dictated the story of his life. He read the words twice before they settled in his mind. Post-traumatic delirium. Pharmacological aggression side effects. Temporary psychosis during neural stimulation phase. His hands trembled. So it had been real, his confusion, the violent impulses, the half-dream he had woken into. He hadn't been a monster by birth. He had been chemically sculpted into one. But that didn't absolve him. The memory of Avery's voice in the hospital corridor still cut deep. You threatened to kill them. He closed the folder. His reflection in the window looked older than it should have, haunted, human. Hayes entered quietly. Sir, you asked for the after-incident briefing. Elliot gestured to the chair. Forget the company. Tell me about her. Hayes hesitated. Mrs. Tate? She's living under the name Beaumont. Freelance translator. Keeps to herself. Children enrolled at St. Luke's Primary, good students. The boy, exceptionally gifted with computers. I know, Elliot murmured. Hayes tilted his head. Do you want me to maintain observation? Only enough to keep them safe, Elliot said. No more interference. No more fear. Hayes studied him for a long moment. You've changed. Elliot almost smiled. Maybe too late. At the small coastal apartment, Avery was mending Layla's school uniform when Hayden came in, jaw tight. He sent another message. Her needle froze mid-stitch. What? Email this time. To my burner account. How he even found it, I don't know. Hayden tossed the tablet onto the table. The subject line read, You deserve the truth. Did you open it? I'm not stupid. Avery clicked anyway. The body of the message contained only one sentence and an attached file. The man who threatened you wasn't himself. Let me prove it. She hovered over the attachment. Her mind screamed delete, but her heart, the part that still remembered Elliot's voice when it wasn't made of anger, trembled. Mom, Hayden said sharply. Don't. I have to know, she whispered. She opened it. The file wasn't a trap. It was a scan, medical records, hospital logs, psychiatric assessments. Words she barely understood but felt in her bones. Neurochemical imbalance. Medication mismanagement. Induced paranoia. Her vision blurred. Oh, God. Hayden frowned. So what? He wants pity? No, she said softly. He wants forgiveness. Layla peeked from the doorway. Are you going to give it? Avery's throat tightened. I don't know. The next afternoon, when Avery picked the twins up from school, Elliot's car was parked across the street, a sleek black Sentinel against the curb. He stood beside it, no entourage, no armor of business. Just a man waiting in the rain without an umbrella. Avery froze. Get in the car, she murmured to the twins. Hayden folded his arms. You talk to him, you talk alone. Please. But he shook his head. He doesn't get to show up and pretend we're a family. Elliot approached slowly, palms visible, voice steady. Avery, I'm not here to fight. You shouldn't be here at all. I needed to see them, he said. Just once without lies. His eyes flicked toward the twins. You were right to run. But I'm not the man you left behind. Avery swallowed hard. Words are cheap, Elliot. I have proof, he said quietly. My doctors. Hayden cut in, sharp as a blade. We saw your file. Congratulations, you were sick. That doesn't erase what you said. The boy's defiance startled him, the echo of his own stubbornness. You're right, Elliot said. It doesn't. That's why I'm here, to earn a chance to make it right. Layla's voice was small. Why now? He looked at her and almost forgot how to breathe. Because I didn't know what I'd lost until I saw you. Rain began again, soft, relentless. Avery stepped between them. Go home, Elliot. Please. He nodded once, defeated but calmer. You'll hear from me again, but not through screens. He turned, got into the car, and drove away. Hayden muttered, good. Avery whispered, he looked human. Days passed with no messages, only quiet gestures that felt like ghosts. Groceries left on the doorstep in the early morning. A check delivered anonymously to her father's old company, clearing the remaining debt. Flowers at Layla's school fundraiser from an unnamed donor. Avery tried to ignore them. The twins didn't. Layla said one evening, he's trying. Hayden scoffed. You don't buy forgiveness. He didn't sign the card, she said. That means it's not about credit. Maybe it's about care. Hayden slammed his laptop shut. You're naive. Maybe you're scared, she whispered. He glared. Of what? Him? No, she said. Of loving him. Hayden left the room. Avery stood at the sink, staring at the reflection of the three of them in the window, fractured but together. She wanted to believe in redemption. But redemption didn't keep promises safe, it broke them to rebuild. Meanwhile, in Foster Tower, Elliot's rivals circled like a vulture. Leonard Crane, an opportunist with charm for cameras and venom for boardrooms, was preparing to acquire what remained of the Tate enterprise. Public sympathy for you is waning, Hayes warned. Crane's feeding the press the fallen empire story. He wants blood. Elliot's jaw tightened. He won't get it. The Tates were victims of my arrogance. I owe them protection. You mean her? Elliot didn't deny it. Keep me updated. Quietly. Hayes hesitated. If you're seen defending them, then let them see, Elliot said. I'd rather be crucified for doing the right thing than worshipped for nothing. At home, Avery got the call from her father's old partner, voice trembling. Crane's filing a takeover. If he succeeds, we lose everything, your father's name, the foundation he built. She pressed her hand to her forehead. How is that possible? The debts are gone. He found a loophole, claims the loan payoff was fraudulent, tied to Foster Tech accounts. Her blood turned to ice. He's using Elliot's help against us. After she hung up, Hayden entered, holding his backpack. Something's wrong. Nothing you need to worry about. Mom. His tone had matured, steel beneath the boyishness. If it's him again. It's not. It's business. He studied her. Business is his religion. If it's in our house, it's him. She almost smiled despite herself. You sound just like him when you say that. He frowned. Don't. That night, Avery found an envelope under the door. No name, only a wax seal. Inside, a single handwritten note. I know about Crane. Meet me tomorrow, noon, the pier where we first talked about leaving. Let me fix what I broke. Her pulse stuttered. She should throw it away. She should protect the life she had rebuilt. But her father's company was collapsing again, and the twins were already caught between hate and hunger for truth. She folded the letter and hid it in her coat pocket. The next day, the pier was gray and empty, gulls wheeling above the tide. Elliot stood at the railing, wind tugging his coat. When he saw her, something like relief crossed his face, followed quickly by caution. You came. I'm not staying long. I don't expect you to, he said. Crane's building his case on fraudulent accounting. He thinks I funded your father to manipulate you. I can bury him, but I need your cooperation. You think saving me twice erases the first time you destroyed me? No, he said softly. It's just all I know how to do. She stared at him, tears stinging. Why are you really here, Elliot? Guilt? Because every day since that hospital, I've woken up hearing my own voice say I'd kill what I was meant to protect. I can't undo it, but I can spend the rest of my life protecting them instead. Her breath hitched. They don't want you. I know. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, not jewelry, but 2 handmade bracelets woven from recycled circuit wires, Hayden's favorite color glinting through. I made these myself. Badly. Maybe they'll laugh. That's fine. I just want them to know I'm trying to understand the world they live in. Avery looked at the bracelets, torn between anger and heartbreak. You can't buy trust with trinkets. It's not payment, he said. It's confession. She looked out at the ocean, wind tearing through her hair. They're afraid of you. I'm afraid of me, too, he said. Something inside her cracked. For the first time, she saw not the billionaire, not the villain, but the man who had finally stopped hiding from his own reflection. When she returned home, Hayden was waiting on the porch, face tight. You met him, didn't you? She blinked. How? He held up his tablet. I traced a beacon you don't know your phone sends. I saw your coordinates. Hayden. I had to know you were safe. He stepped closer. Was he? She handed him the small bracelet. He said this was for you. Hayden stared at it, anger flickering with something softer. He doesn't get to fix things this easy. No, she said. But maybe he gets to try. He turned the bracelet over in his palm. I'm not ready. Neither is he, she said. Before she could say more, her phone buzzed again, an unknown number, urgent. She answered. Mrs. Beaumont, a voice said. It's about your father's company. Crane's filed for emergency acquisition. He's freezing your accounts. We think Fostertech's internal servers were breached again, by someone close. Her stomach dropped. By who? The line crackled. Your son's IP address just pinged their firewall. Avery's blood ran cold. No, he wouldn't. But Hayden's expression said otherwise. He met her eyes, guilt and defiance colliding. I was trying to stop him, Mom. But someone's already inside. Who? Hayden swallowed hard. It's not me anymore. A new message appeared on his tablet, white text over black. Hello, Hayden. Nice to meet you in person. L. Crane. Avery's heart seized. And across town, Elliot's phone vibrated with an alert. Unauthorized breach, origin, Crane Corp HQ. He read the message and whispered, he's going after them. The rain began again, hard and relentless. Elliot grabbed his coat, eyes burning with resolve. Not this time. Thunder cracked over the harbor as if the city itself were breaking open. Avery gripped the steering wheel, every muscle locked. The twins sat silent in the back seat, the glow from Hayden's tablet illuminating their faces like ghostlight. On screen, code spilled in quick green rivers. Crane's moving now, Hayden had said. His hijacking the servers, framing us for the breach. She had barely understood half of it. All she knew was that the same man who had nearly destroyed her father's company once was coming to finish the job, and this time, her son's fingerprints were being used as the weapon. Mom, Hayden said, voice taut. He cloned my credentials. If he pushes the attack, it'll look like I crashed the foster tech security grid. Then we'll stop him, Avery said. How? Her answer was quiet. We won't do it alone. Elliot Foster hadn't slept. His penthouse was alive with alarms, the red pulse of breach indicators flashing across every wall screen. His internal network had been infiltrated again, but this time the signal came from inside Crane's building. Hayes' voice was clipped over the comm. Sir, Crane's framing the tape boy. We have enough to prove the setup if we can intercept the data stream. Get me into the feed, Elliot ordered. That'll require admin access from the same subnet Crane's using. Elliot exhaled, realization striking. Hayden. Sir. He's the only one who can get us there. Hayes hesitated. You trust him? Elliot's jaw tightened. I have to. He grabbed his coat and keys. Keep the lines open. I'm going to them. Avery's phone vibrated just as she turned onto the coastal road. Elliot's name flashed across the screen. She almost ignored it, but Layla's small voice came from the back seat. Answer him, Mom. She did. Where are you? Elliot's voice was breathless, laced with urgency. Driving, she said. To you. Good. Don't stop. Crane's making his move. He's going to collapse Foster Tech's servers and pin it on Hayden. Her grip tightened. We know. We're trying to stop it. Then let me help. She wanted to say no. She wanted to remind him of every broken promise. But behind her, she could hear Hayden typing, the desperate clack of fingers chasing time. Fine, she said. We'll meet at the harbor warehouse. I'm already there. The old warehouse smelled of rust and salt. Elliot waited near the broken loading doors, a laptop balanced on the hood of his car, the blue glow painting the rain that streaked his face. When the headlights appeared down the road, something inside him unclenched. The car stopped, and Avery stepped out first. Where is he? She demanded. Crane's using a mirrored node to reroute the attack, Elliot said, voice steady. We can stop it if we sync both firewalls, his and mine. Hayden will have to counter from the inside while I block him at the source. Avery looked at her son. Can you do it? Hayden's chin lifted. Watch me. He slid into the passenger seat of Elliot's car, pulling his tablet closer. You'll need to give me root access. Elliot handed him a secure drive without hesitation. Already unlocked. The boy blinked. You trust me that much? Elliot met his gaze. You're my son. I'm not making the same mistake twice. Something flickered in Hayden's eyes, confusion, respect, maybe both, before he bent over the keyboard. Inside the warehouse, the air felt electric, every hum of machinery syncing with the storm outside. Layla sat beside Avery, clutching her hand as the two watched father and son work. Lines of code filled the screens, digital lightning moving faster than thought. Hayden's fingers flew, mirroring Elliot's inputs. I've traced the core inject, Hayden muttered. Crane embedded a Trojan inside the backup scheduler. Then purge it, Elliot said. I can't, he's encrypting it live. Override with parallel brute. Already on it. Avery watched the two of them move in perfect unison, speaking a language only they understood. For the first time, she saw what Hayden had inherited, not Elliot's power, but his precision, the intensity that could build or destroy depending on how it was used. Layla whispered, they look the same when they think. Avery nodded, tears stinging. I know. The monitors flashed. Hayden cursed under his breath. He's locking us out. Elliot slammed a key command. Then we go manual. Cut power to your device and reroute through mine. That'll expose your system. Hayden said. I don't care. Dad. The word slipped out before Hayden realized he'd said it. Elliot froze, a single heartbeat too long, and then smiled, faint but real. Good, he said softly. Now focus. At Crane Corp headquarters, Leonard Crane leaned back in his chair, watching the cascade of stolen data fill his screens. By morning, he told his assistant, Foster Tech collapses, and the blame lands squarely on that brat's IP address. A scandal, a lawsuit, a destroyed empire. Poetic. Then a new window opened across his interface. Nice try. You picked the wrong ghosts. H. Crane's smile vanished. What the? The server screamed, fans whining as code ripped through the walls of his system. System breach detected. Firewall compromised. Find him. Crane barked. His assistant stammered. He's not inside our network anymore. He's reflecting us. Crane slammed his fist down. Who is he? A new message flashed, this one in white text on a black background. His son. And then the screens went black. In the warehouse, Hayden let out a shaky laugh. He's out. Elliot's eyes stayed on the code still stabilizing. We're not done. We need to restore the original logs before the stock exchange opens. Hayden typed a final command and exhaled. Done. All transactions verified. The storm outside broke into steady rain. The hum of the service faded. It's over, Layla said softly. Elliot closed the laptop and turned toward them. His face, usually carved in control, was open, raw. No, he said. It's beginning. He knelt in front of his children. You saved thousands of people tonight. You saved me. I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful. Hayden's voice wavered. You'd really risk your company for us? I'd risk everything, Elliot said. I already did. A long silence stretched before Hayden spoke again. Then maybe, we start with coffee. Elliot laughed quietly, a sound that carried more relief than joy. Deal. Outside, the police sirens drew closer. Avery stepped beside him. You just made enemies in every corner of your industry. He shrugged. Let them come. She studied him for a long moment. You meant what you said, to protect them? With my life, he said simply. Something in her face softened, the years of distrust loosening their grip. They'll need time. So will I, he said. Layla approached, tugging at Avery's sleeve. Mom, can we go home? Avery smiled faintly. Yes, baby. Home. Elliot watched them walk toward the car, every step a silent prayer that this wasn't just a temporary truce. Hayes called through the rain. Sir, Crane's been arrested. Cybercrime Division found evidence of financial sabotage. Elliot nodded. Good. Let the world deal with him. And us? Hayes asked. Elliot looked toward the departing taillights. We're done hiding. Hours later, dawn stretched thin pink across the horizon. The storm had washed the city clean. At home, Hayden slept on the couch, Layla curled beside him. Avery stood by the window, arms folded, watching the waves. Elliot's reflection appeared beside hers in the glass. He hadn't asked to come in, she had opened the door before he could knock. They'll forgive you someday, she said quietly. He looked at the twins. I don't need forgiveness. Just a chance to be here. She turned to him. That's what forgiveness is. For a moment, there was peace. The kind that feels like it might hold. Then Hayden's tablet buzzed on the coffee table. Avery frowned. I thought you shut it down. Elliot picked it up. The screen glowed with a new message. You think Crane worked alone? He was only the beginning. Elliot's jaw hardened. Avery whispered, what does it mean? He looked toward the window where the sunrise was already fading behind another line of gathering clouds. It means, he said, this family just became a target. He set the tablet down, his voice low and resolute. And this time, they'll have to go through me first. Lightning flashed again over the sea, and in its light Avery saw the man she had once feared, the same man now standing as their shield. The sea was calm again, as if the storm that had nearly broken them had also decided they'd suffered enough. The city's skyline glimmered in gold and glass, fresh and fragile, like something rebuilding itself after fire. For the first time in weeks, Avery let herself breathe. The immediate threat was gone, Crane's network dismantled, his allies exposed by the same code he'd used to frame them. The headlines called it the corporate redemption, painting Elliot as a ruthless genius who had saved his company from sabotage. None of them knew the truth. The boy who had cracked the world open from a tablet had been the real hero. Hayden refused to talk about it. Layla painted about it instead, storm clouds giving way to sunlight, a family of 4 sketched as silhouettes on a pier. Avery didn't ask questions. She was learning that sometimes healing began in silence. Elliot arrived at their apartment one quiet evening carrying takeout boxes and an uncertain expression. The twins sat on the couch, watching him the way feral cats study an open door. "I brought dinner," he said. Hayden's eyebrow rose. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just noodles." "Poison noodles?" "Only if you don't eat them," Elliot replied, deadpan. Layla giggled before she could stop herself. Avery tried to hide her smile but failed. They ate together at the small kitchen table, an arrangement that felt both impossibly ordinary and heartbreakingly new. Between bites, Elliot glanced at Avery. "Thank you for letting me come." "Thank you for knocking this time," she said softly. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a start. After dinner, the twins went to their room. Avery began clearing dishes, but Elliot stopped her. "Let me." "You don't have to." "I know." He took the plate gently from her hands. Their fingers brushed, and she froze. "I keep replaying everything I said after waking up," he murmured. "The things I can't unsay. The man I was." "You were sick," she said. "I was cruel," he countered. "Medication doesn't excuse cruelty. It only explains it." Avery met his eyes, the old pain still visible beneath the calm. "You hurt me, Elliot. You scared me." He nodded. "I know. And I've spent every day since trying to deserve the chance to stand here and say I'm sorry. For what I did, for what I didn't do, for the years you had to raise them alone." Tears blurred her vision. He didn't step closer, he didn't have to. The sincerity in his voice did all the reaching. "Apology accepted," she whispered. "But forgiveness will take time." "Time," he said quietly, "is all I have left worth spending." The next morning, Elliot met Hayden outside the school gate. The boy stopped short, backpack slung over one shoulder. "You following me now?" Hayden asked. "Just waiting." "For what?" Elliot hesitated. "To say thank you." Hayden scowled. "For what? Almost tanking your company?" "For saving it," Elliot said. "And for saving me from Crane's trap. You could have run, but you didn't." Hayden shifted awkwardly. "Yeah, well. It's kind of hard to run when your mom's dragging you into heroics." Elliot smiled faintly. "You have her courage." Hayden rolled his eyes. "Please don't make this sentimental. It's weird." "I'll keep that in mind," Elliot said dryly. "But I owe you more than gratitude. You have real talent. I want to show you how to use it, the right way." Hayden squinted. "You mean, legally?" "Yes." "Boring." Elliot chuckled. "Necessary. You can't build a firewall strong enough to protect what you love if you're always outside the law." The boy hesitated, curiosity softening his defiance. "And you'd actually teach me?" "If you'll let me." "Fine. But I'm not calling you Dad yet." Elliot smiled. "Fair enough." Later that week, Elliot invited them all to Foster Tower. The building felt different now, less fortress, more home. The receptionist smiled at the twins. Employees no longer looked at Avery as the ghost of a scandal but as the woman their boss treated with quiet reverence. He led them to a small conference room overlooking the harbor. On the table sat a single framed document. Avery frowned. "What's this?" "The legal transfer," Elliot said. "I've restored your father's company to full independence. Every share, every asset. It's yours now, Avery." She blinked, speechless. "Why would you?" "Because it was never mine to take," he said simply. "And because I needed to close the circle the right way." Layla clapped. "Does that mean we're rich?" Avery laughed through her tears. "No, sweetheart. It means we're free." Elliot looked at her. "That's all I ever wanted for you, to be free. I just didn't know how to let go." "And now?" she asked. He held her gaze. Now I'd like to learn how to hold on without hurting. That evening, they walked along the pier where it had all begun. The same wind, the same salt, but a different silence between them. Avery stopped near the railing. You know this doesn't erase the past. I wouldn't want it to, Elliot said. It's the only proof we survived it. She studied him. Do you really think we could make this work? After everything? I think, he said, we already are. Layla ran ahead chasing gulls, laughter cutting through the dusk. Hayden lingered beside them, pretending not to listen but clearly absorbing every word. Elliot watched his children, his family, with awe that still felt too large for his chest. I used to believe control was strength, he said. Now I know it's love. And love doesn't obey logic. Avery smiled faintly. You sound like me. Don't insult yourself, he teased. She laughed, shaking her head. You're impossible. I'm trying to be better, he said. I see that, she admitted. And that scares me more than your anger ever did. Why? Because now I might start hoping again. He reached out, slowly, carefully, and brushed his fingers against hers. Then let's hope together. Back home that night, the apartment buzzed with a warmth Avery hadn't felt in years. Layla was sprawled on the couch sketching Elliot's face with exaggerated seriousness. Hayden sat at the table with his laptop, Elliot beside him, both focused on a glowing screen. Okay, Elliot said, pointing. See that? That's a penetration test. You run it against your own systems, not someone else's. Hayden smirked. Where's the fun in that? The fun is not getting arrested. Debatable. Elliot gave him a look. You'll learn there's power in restraint. The best hackers are the ones who can build as easily as they break. Hayden closed the laptop. You mean like you? Elliot paused, understanding the weight behind the question. No, he said finally. Better than me. Hayden's mouth twitched into a reluctant smile. That's a low bar. Elliot laughed. Fair. Avery leaned against the doorframe, watching them. For the first time, she saw what a second chance could look like. Not perfect, not painless, but possible. Layla looked up from her drawing. Mom? What are we now? A family again? Avery met Elliot's eyes. He nodded once, silently promising what words couldn't. She smiled. We're something better. We're learning. Later, when the twins were asleep, Avery stepped onto the balcony. The night smelled of rain and electricity. Elliot joined her, hands in his pockets. Do you ever wonder, she said, what would have happened if you hadn't woken up angry? All the time. He leaned on the railing beside her. But if I hadn't, I wouldn't have met this version of you, the one strong enough to walk away, raise two geniuses, and still have the grace to let me try again. She looked at him, eyes glistening. You really have changed. I had to. The alternative was losing the only thing that ever mattered. She stepped closer, voice barely above a whisper. Don't make promises you can't keep. He smiled sadly. Then I'll make a vow instead. Vows are promises in tuxedos, she said, teasing through her tears. Maybe, he said, but they're also reminders. He reached for her hand. A reminder that even broken beginnings can end with love if we're brave enough to try again. Avery didn't pull away this time. Then here's mine, no more running. Not from you, not from the past, not from hope. Elliot's eyes softened. Deal. Inside, Hayden stirred on the couch, half asleep. Hey, he mumbled, keep it PG out there, old people. Avery laughed, covering her face. Elliot grinned. Go to sleep, hacker. Can't. Brain's busy. With what? Building something. Elliot tilted his head. What kind of something? Hayden yawned. A better firewall. For us. Elliot exchanged a look with Avery, a mix of pride, amusement, and something too deep to name. She whispered, he gets that from you. He shook his head. No. He gets that from us. Outside, the wind softened, the city lights reflecting off the calm water like scattered stars. For the first time in 4 long years, There was no running, no fear, only the fragile, luminous weight of beginning again. Morning light poured through the curtains. Hayden was already at the table, typing. Elliot leaned over his shoulder. Okay, lesson 1, Elliot said. Ethical hacking means permission first. Hayden smirked. What if it's implied permission? Elliot groaned. There's no such thing. Sure there is, Hayden said, grinning. It's called family. Avery laughed from the kitchen. Layla rolled her eyes affectionately. Elliot looked around the room, the laughter, the chaos, the second chances, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. He met Avery's gaze. We're really doing this. She nodded. Yes, Elliot. We are. Outside, the storm clouds had finally cleared. And for once, no one was running.